Nice to meet you. And you are the cliched young and energetic person. And to be spiritual also. So it's some kind of a deadly combination to be able to take spirituality to the world.
See, as far as I am concerned, for me spirituality is way of life. I don't think it is a separate profession or something separate which you need to do separately. Right from my childhood, what has intrigued me is what is the fundamental purpose of human life. And my quest to know this has made me what I am. And my experiences have attracted people to this way of life, which I call the way of life of Hindutva. And a huge mass movement, spiritual movement has evolved voluntarily.
And today when people speak about spirituality,
Yes.
this is a very confusing term too.
Yes.
Because many people may not be able to exactly relate spirituality to the way of life that you plan to put forth. But whereas in this particular case, when you're talking about spirituality, are you talking about the immaterial, like material removed from
No, not at all.
the world? Or are you talking about spirituality in the sense it's something that is part of your life and existence?
I will like to begin the answer by quoting Gautam Buddha. Gautam Buddha said, either everything is spiritual or nothing is spiritual. Either the entire consciousness and its all manifestations are spirituality, or nothing is spirituality. When I speak of spirituality and when I talk of Hindutva, I mean the one and the same thing. By spirituality, I mean that holistic way of life which enables a person to transcend his Shudra Maipana, his Shudra I, to realize his Satya Swarup, his true essence, who he is. As Raman Maharshi said, the only question worth answering is, who am I? The quest to find this who am I is spirituality for me.
But that hunger and thirst
Yes.
most often could not be sated by a lot of people,
Yes.
because most often the answers that you get are not complete in themselves. So you may not be able to accept the answer even if the answer is true.
Yes. See, the reason to this dilemma is for a very simple reason. People don't try to focus on the fundamental avarodha, hindrance to God realization, that is I. But even ego, the word ego, doesn't actually capture what I'm trying to say. Main, I, aham. For example, a common man, this camera person. What is the core of his life? Main, mera, mujhe. What drives him? Something good should happen to me. I should be benefited. No harm should come to me. I should not be put in an uncomfortable position. If the condition for the same is that let the larger good of the country be compromised, or the larger good of the civilization be compromised, so be it. But I should be comfortable. This I, which manifests itself in two ways, swarth, selfishness, and bhaya, swanirmit atmaghati bhaya, self-created suicidal fear. These two manifestations of ego, if it can be understood in its entirety, in its fullness, and then if it can be transcended, leads to God realization.
But for everything to be realized, first a person should be aware of himself.
Right.
Because the whole world starts with
Right.
oneself.
Right.
So when you talk about the annihilation of the ego
Right.
or the self,
Right.
then aren't you actually denigrating the importance of everything else?
No, not at all. Because that is the reason I said the word ego doesn't capture the meaning of main. See, the point is this. If suppose you believe today that you are limited only to this body, that if the name Thimaya captures your being, if that is your concept of self, then it is incomplete concept. What I am implying is you are this and the infinite.
Okay.
You yourself are the pathway to infinite. So the door is equally important And so is the entire picture.
But today when we talk about these concepts,
Right.
one about myself, one about, in relation to the world, in relation to the infinite and things like that, these are basically beliefs.
Right.
And we may call it spirituality.
Right.
Somebody else may call it illusion.
Right.
Or somebody may even call it delusion.
Right.
So where do we actually make these distinctions?
We make the distinction by living the spiritual life. Let me just explain you. In our spiritual movement, what I told my disciples is to live Hindutva, live Ram Tattva. For example, Prabhu Shri Ram led the life in a certain way. He could have lived the life of a king in utmost comfort. But when he saw that Hindu civilization and this great country is in danger because of the Asuric pravritti of Ravan, because of the terrorism being propagated by him, because of the targeted terrorist attack he was doing on the fundamentals of Hindu Sanskriti, Rishi Sanskriti, like Rishi Munis, Yagya, Gurukul, he made it a point that I will not live for myself. I don't want to be king if my country is in danger. What he did? He took a 14-year Padyatra from Ayodhya to Lanka, from North India to South India. In that process, first uniting all the divine forces, all the Hindu forces, empowering the disenfranchised, bringing together, enlightening, empowering all the section of Hindu society, thereby creating such a Jagrita Chaitanya united Hindu force that it was able to eradicate the evil mindset being propagated by Ravana. Once that was done, Prabhu Shri Ram surrendered himself to good governance, eradicating suffering, thereby establishing the golden standard of good governance, Ram Rajya. This way of life, one needs to lead and then see whether this way of life enables him to transcend his I and realize his Anantattva. And my own experiences tell me that it does, because it has happened in my life.
But today when you're talking about an individual transcending and actually offering himself to a larger purpose of the world,
Yes.
particularly in this limited understanding of Rashtravad,
Yes.
as opposed to the globalization or the global human being, to the extent of a person looking at himself as the part of the universe. Basically you're talking about the nation and the person, and the larger interests of the society being foremost. But
And the larger interest of Dharma.
but knowing very well that an individual is the building block of a society, building unit of a nation, don't you think the welfare of an individual is also at most important?
Absolutely.
As compared to the interests of the country itself?
Absolutely.
Otherwise, perhaps the whole structure of the nation and the society would be false.
Absolutely. See, welfare of an individual is symbiotically connected to the larger welfare of the nation and vice versa. But suppose an individual only thinks in the line that if my welfare happens, by default the welfare of the country happens without me caring for the others, this limited mindset is harmful. But if that individual, like what I tell my disciples, hear this out carefully. What does Ram Tattva means? Prabhu Shri Ram, before surrendering himself to the larger cause of Rashtra Sadhana, Dharma Sadhana, he empowered himself. He went to Maharshi Vashisht and became expert of statecraft, political science and economics, as we can read in Yoga Vashisht. Then he went to Maharshi Vishwamitra Ashram and he learned the warfare so that he be able to protect this divine wisdom. A person, till he himself is not empowered, how can he serve others? You take my own example. Even though from my childhood, my only inclination was spirituality, I did my BTech from IIT. I did my BTech specifically in civil engineering so that I can relate to day-to-day nation building. Post which, I did my postgraduate diploma in finance, risk management, so that I can understand the nitty-gritties of economics, finance. Without a samagra vikas of Rashtra, without Samagra Arthik Vikas, Samajik Samrasta and Rajnetik Sashaktikaran of the entire country and each and every individual is achieved, the entire nation can never realize Adhyatma.
Dear viewers, let's meet after a short break.
to Jagat Darshana.